Coming to you from the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at CarolinaCatholicRadio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. Coming to you every Monday at this same time. It's Faith and Sports. I'm Chris, the producer, and always joining me in the show, your host, the one, the only, the incomparable, whatever that means, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Hey. Thank you, folks, for joining us today. However, wherever, whenever you are joining us, I know, listen to this crowd. This is fantastic. Folks, sit down. I need you to sit down, just pipe down, and listen to what we got going on in the show.
I think there's a lot of excited Braves fans out there.
There's a lot of excited Braves fans, a lot of excited Pittsburgh Penguins, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. I own you. Do you know who said that over the weekend? I own you. I still own you. We'll have to talk about that later. Folks, welcome to Faith and Sport. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss all things ethics in sports, including our hit and miss with Ed Billick. We're going to do weekend headlines. We're going to, after the break, we're going to have more discussion on current topics in sport. And then toward the end, we're going to do quick Q&A with Dr. A. And get this, Chris. We have a great trivia question. I want everybody to think about this. I want our in-studio guests to think about this. What incredible NCAA football record was broken this month? I thought it was great, and it has directly to do with our in-studio guest. Let me bring him on right now. Eddie Billick, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dr. John Acquaviva, always a pleasure to be with you here on this fine Faith and Sports show.
This is fantastic. Ed, one of the things that I thought about, in fact, you and I were talking about on the way here. In fact, let me, folks, tell you how it works. I teach in the morning on Mondays at Wingate University. And then I drive over here. We do the little show. But most of the time, or when you're on, just about every time, we'll meet not too far from my house in Matthews. And we'll drive up here together. It gives us the time to catch up on how we've been since the last time we saw each other, to prep for the show to a certain degree. And one of the things I mentioned to you is, you know what, let's talk about, because we haven't done it for literally a few months, why do we do this show? So before we do our hit and miss, which we talk about something that's really positive in the world of sport, negative in the world of sport, that has to do with faith, sport, something about ethics or character, morality. But before we do that, let's talk about why we do faith in sport. What's your energy behind us doing this show?
You know, first of all, it provides me energy, and we get no compensation for this. We do this as a ministry. It's out of our hearts and our love for our faith. We also love sports. We intertwine the both together, and then you bring in the ethics and morality in that whole piece based off of the guests you have and the conversations you lead us through. So, I mean, it's a pleasure. I think you and I have been together 5 years off and on this kind of thing.
I think we have. We've been talking about this for a long time, and one of the things that motivated me to do this was, and forgive me for those folks who are regular listeners to the show, you've heard this before, but it was back in 2005. It was right before the death of JP2. He was a former athlete himself. He had played rugby in his day.
JP2?
JP2.
Who, you played for the Tigers?
You're right.
Come on, just help us out with that.
No, you're right.
You and him are buds,
John
I know.
Paul II.
He's now a saint. You'll have St. John Acquaviva someday. You guys are buds.
Did I just say JP2?
Yeah, you did. You did JP2.
I know. You can refer
Pope
to him as
John
Paul II.
He was a pope.
Yeah.
That's right. I kind of shortchanged him there, didn't I?
Yeah, you're buds.
But it's true that a lot of people just refer to him as JP2, especially when he was reigning as pontiff. But back in fact, the last year of his pontiff, he started an office of the laity called the Office of Church and Sport. And the purpose of this, among other things, was to fully recognize the meaning and the importance of sport in our culture. In other words, to say that, you know, a lot of people go, well, if you're a true Christian, you shouldn't be interested, or you shouldn't participate in sport, or you shouldn't have a team to root for, which is pure silliness, right? There's nothing counter to that. It depends on how we conduct ourselves when we're watching a sport, when we're participating in a sport, that we should be aware of. And that was part of John Paul II's goal with starting this Office of the Laity, the Office of Church and Sport. And in particular, he said, listen, when we cross over that line onto the field, as the coach, as the player, as the referee, whatever it is, we need to bring our faith with us, and we need to bring Christ into those situations. We can still compete hard. We can still try to want to win the game. We can still try to outduel, outperform, outtry, exercise regarding fitness and preparation for the contest or the game. We can try to win the game outright, but the point is that we need to bring character and ethics and ultimately morality into the world of sport, and that's what's going to bring Christ into people's lives, is what he thought. And that's why I have this idea for the show. I said, why not make this a regular weekly conversation? And I brought Ed on about 5 years ago, and still to this day, he joins me at least once a week, once a month to do this show, to talk about, and it is truly a sports show. However, we like to bring in things that are ethical, things that are moral, things that are based in character, either with the guests or the conversation that you and I have. And I'm so excited to do this each and every week.
Yeah, I tell you, that leads right into my hit of the week, too.
Let's do it, brother. It's your turn.
You said bring our faith to a sport, and who really did that for me in his playing days, and he was recognized yesterday at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, was Troy Polamalu. And his last game was 2015, but he was back yesterday with Bill Cowher, Alan Faneck, and Donnie Shell, who's also a big man of faith, lives not far from us down in South Carolina. But Troy Polamalu came back to Heinz Field. And he said, the rain, the day, the kind of cloudy weather, and the mud, these are the days I dreamed of playing football. So he talked about the game itself, because the more misery, the better. But Troy Polamalu was known for his Christian beliefs on the field. And he was early Christianity, led him and his wife, they converted to Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah.
What is that?
I'm not quite sure what that is, but I think really what it is, it's a form of conservative Christianity. You probably are like an old school Christian, and so just think of like political topics that kind of carry over into the world of religion. Think that when you think of Orthodox
And
Christian.
what he did, John, is he made the sign of the cross after every play. And you and I were talking about that must have been some Catholic upbringing.
That's right.
As a child. And among his spiritual activities was going to a pilgrimage. He gives interviews, but when he does, he also speaks his role in spiritual life. So it was an emotional day for him to be back at Heinz Field. But I know I was telling you that he attended one of my mom's CDFA meetings, the Catholic Daughters of America, and he spoke to them about his Christian life. Awesome. So that's my hit of the week because, number one, he's back with the Steelers. And there was a little when he was not too happy when they let him go. He had to get on with his life's work. But he was back in a town that loves him dearly. He was back on the playing field with all the players. And he was honored yesterday, and he broke down. He was crying. He's a very emotional guy. Troy Polamalu, just an outstanding Christian who brought his faith to his sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. This is Faith in Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sport. So whether you are a athlete, a parent of an athlete, a grandparent of an athlete, you're a referee, you're a coach, you're involved in sport in any way, we want to make this show for you. Let me ask you this before we get to my hit or miss of the week. When they brought him back to Heinz Field, was he the only one honored, or were there other?
Oh, no. He was along with Bill Cowher.
Got it.
And Donnie Shell and Alan Faneca. They were the inductees, the Steeler inductees into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I glossed over that. Yeah, they were all there together.
Got it. Yeah, I like the fact that, in fact, I think it's always uplifting, and I think people of faith get energy when an athlete talks about their faith, because as we've talked about on this show, I've tried to mention this a few times, the reason that it's so important, it's one thing if your friend or your aunt or an uncle, somebody else in your family, it's one thing if a worker, a work colleague, if they talk about their faith, it usually gives us energy because it connects us to them, if we're a fellow Christian and so forth. But the difference with a person of notoriety, like a pro football player, a pro athlete, an actor or an actress, somebody that's in the world of politics, when they talk about their faith, it means something a little more. First of all, there's more microphones in front of them, so there's more people that can hear their voice. But the other thing is this. A lot of those people I just mentioned, they seemingly have everything going for them.
You do.
Including a lot of money. They have notoriety. Some of them are downright famous. They have a lot of prospects in life. So many of them are young. They have their whole world ahead. And despite all the things that could turn them away from God, they make sure that God is a part of their life.
And part of the show, John, and you coined the phrase cathlete.
Yes. Right.
Cathlete is a what? It's a Catholic athlete, right?
That's right. Yeah, and there's a lot of them. And some of them we've had on the show. And those are the ones that you and I either turn to, and sometimes we'll, mention them if they do well in a golf tournament or if they made a speech recently.
Mike Piazza, Jordan Spieth, Vince Scully,
Joe DeLamielleure, yes.
Joe DeLamielleure, who was a devout Catholic in his own right, and these guys were. So I look at an athlete as more of a mature guy now than when I was a youngster. And I have greater respect for their Christian faith.
No, I know. It is really neat. And of course, ever since you and I started doing the show a few years ago, when we hear somebody talk about their faith, it kind of brings up the volume on that a couple more notches, because you and I are no longer just in the pews. We're in the pews, but we're also here talking about it. And it just has that much greater meaning.
It sure does.
You mentioned Mike Piazza. I would encourage everybody, because I want to say it was not this summer, but the summer before, or maybe even 2 summers.
Maybe 2 summers went to the Hall of Fame.
I want to say it was before COVID, so it was probably the summer of 2018. No, 2019. And folks, especially if you're a practicing Catholic, go to YouTube and listen to his induction into the Hall of Fame, because he mentions specifically, not only is it his Christian faith, but he thanks his mom for bringing up in the Catholic faith.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was really inspiring, and I thought that took a lot of courage, because there's probably a lot of people in the audience going, why is he talking about Catholicism? But that's how much it meant to him. And when people hear that, especially if they're thinking about converting, or they're wondering what this whole thing about Christianity is about, or if they're wondering, why have faith? Like, why will it enhance my life if I believe in God? And it's discussions like that, and it's speeches like that I think bring a couple people forward. And who knows how many people heard his voice and turned to the Lord.
Absolutely.
It's inspiring, brother.
Sure is.
Good stuff. Folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University. In here with me is Ed Billick. He's a longtime member of WBT right here in the Charlotte area. All you guys have to do is turn to 1110 AM or FM.
99.3 FM, yeah. And also we run the show Carolina Focus, heard every Sunday morning on all 3 stations.
You
there.
Interviewed a really interesting guy a couple months ago.
Yeah, his name was Dr. John Acquaviva.
Hey, if we went to some type of archive in WBT, could you?
It's in the podcast.
There you go.
We could go listen to the interview there. You were on WBT and Mix 107.9 and 102.5, 610.
I love that.
Sports Radio.
I think he's just making all those numbers up, but it sounds good when you say it with that type of voice.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most popular downloads on the site.
There you go, folks.
Hey,
could we, if I wanted to, could we download this show, Chris?
Yes, we could.
This particular show right now that people are listening to, they could go to carolinacatholicradio.org and they could download it. And they could put it on their little listening device.
That's right.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, cassette player. No, but right, Chris, you have all this archive, so you go back and listen to any show.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
If you missed it.
That's right.
It's fantastic.
Relive your favorite moments of faith and sport.
You could do the best of.
Yeah.
We could do the best stuff. Chris is like, oh, no, don't give me one more task. I
got stuff work going. Especially this week you do, Chris, huh? Let's later on talk about what's going on in Carolina Catholic Radio this week. It's pretty cool with the CEO, David Papandreou.
That's right.
Coined up.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, what's your hit?
Brother, hit or miss. Yours was a hit. Mine's a miss. And right now, as Chris is really well aware of, as we all are, we're all baseball fans here, genuine baseball fans. It's about the baseball playoffs not all being on network TV. Now, let me say why this is such a big hit. If you have cable, you've probably owned cable for a number of years, maybe even a couple of decades. So you have access to ESPN and TNT and TBS and so forth. So you're like, yeah. Whether it's on ABC, NBC, Fox, or ESPN, I can watch it. What's the big deal? Can't everybody watch it? But for several years, folks, it has been on cable, at least the wild card games and the first playoff, what are called the divisional series, when there's 4 teams left in each league, the American League and the National League. In fact, both wild card games were played on ESPN. And then once they started in their divisional series, some of the games were on Fox, true. Other games, though, most of them were on Fox Sports, which is a cable station, or it was on TBS.
So your point is you can't find it on ABC, CBS, or NBC, or Fox, the regular Fox.
Brother, the reason that this is a problem is because since the early 1980s, and it was literally the number 1 and 2 sports in America were neck and neck. It was baseball and pro football, right? They were both at around 33%. So 2/3 of all Americans said their favorite sport was either football or baseball. You know what it is now? Baseball is still, or football is still around 33%. They haven't changed. Baseball is now into the single digits. It's less than 10%. 9% of the American public says baseball is my favorite sport. And I'm wondering, Ed, Chris, is it possible the fact that playoffs are the most exciting part of baseball, that they're not putting it on a silver platter and giving it to the people that want to watch it? Is it possible that this is at least part of the problem?
Well, I tell you, the second part of the problem, to bounce off of that, what gets played every Sunday afternoon?
The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, right.
Oh, sorry.
The
I thought, the NFL.
A 1 o'clock
right.
kick and a 4 o'clock kick.
Yep.
What time are the baseball playoffs scheduled?
They're usually at night.
Yeah, and a 7-8-year-old has to do what the next day?
Yeah, that's right. Go to school, and they probably can't
So
stand
they're
that
not tailoring it like you and I. We used to get off the school bus, run home.
That's right.
4 o'clock
Watch our
on
Pirates,
NBC
watch our
with
Tigers.
Kirk out. Yeah, we're older
Absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely.
But at least you could watch some of the pennant races in the afternoon, the World Series in the afternoon versus 8 o'clock or 8:30 or 9 o'clock, for heaven's sakes.
Chris, I think Ed is just as frustrated as I am at this whole thing.
No wonder
like
popularity among the younger
Yes.
people. And plus, it's not fast enough. That's another whole story. It is the national pastime. You get me fired up.
Absolutely. Brother, let me go down a different lane here. Okay, so you guys know these changes that took place in the last year. This past year, last year, and COVID year, which is a pure COVID year, shortened season, that whole thing. What did they do to speed the game up once it went to extra innings? Do you remember?
Yeah. Put a man at second base.
Put a man at second base with nobody out. You're like, what? What is this, Little League? I remember when I was playing Little League, when we only had so many players, we would play like center field and over. If you hit it to right field, you're out, right? Stuff like that. I'm surprised they didn't do a rule like that. So anyway, it was similar to that. They put a guy at second base. It speeds up the whole thing, so they want the game to end early. Why do they want the game to end early?
So they can have more commercial time.
No.
There's more commercials now there than there were in the 70s and 80s.
Brother, I understand what you're saying, but that's actually not the reason. It was because when they poll people, survey people, the fan goes, the game's a little too long. And now what they do is if you are out pitching, you have to pitch to at least so many batters now before you can be removed. Because you know what the old rule was? You threw one pitch, then you could be removed. People are going insane going, this is brutal. So here's the thing. If you're trying genuinely to capture people's attention, isn't a good way to capture people's attention? Put the product on TV that they can watch. Here's the bad assumption.
He is fired up today.
Yeah.
You guys, here's the bad assumption. Everybody thinks everybody has cable, right? That's I bet $1 million is a lot of people.
Well, when I saw your question, I'm thinking, gosh, he's coming out of the 70s or the 60s. Everyone has. You still got your bunny ears, I guess.
We do have our bunny ears. Listen to this. And I still got my flip phone. Look at this. You guys can attest to that. In 2018, this is...
Not long ago.
No. There were 90 million U.S. households subscribed that either had cable or satellite TV. And you know what that is? That's less than... or that's around, a fourth of our population.
Okay.
Something like that. And it says the number has dropped from 2018 to 2019. So even less people have that. You're talking about a fourth of our nation has cable TV. You know, that's another assumption. When we went to COVID and people went to Zooming and so forth, they thought everybody, just turn on your computer. People didn't have the internet. We assume because we have the internet, we have cell phones, that everybody has the same thing. And it's not true. And the bottom line is this, you guys, and I'll land the plane with this. It's just completely errant of MLB to think people are going to come to them when they don't even have access to whatever you're coming to them with or for. It doesn't make any sense to put it on ESPN. It doesn't make any sense to put it on TBS. Ed, they need to put it on NBC, Fox, or somewhere else that we have direct access to it with bunny ears. I'm telling you, brother. Folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic
He's
Radio.
cut the cord.
This is
Chris, he has cut the cord.
This is a very frustrated John Acquaviva coming at you.
And we'll get him in a better mood here pretty soon. Maybe we should say a prayer.
If there's somebody you want to see on this show, if there's something that you want to see us talk about, tweet me at j.acquaviva1. That's the number 1, j.acquaviva1. Or you can write me at faithandsport@wingate.edu.
He's also taking donations for his Spectrum cable bill.
Yeah. Or I think he's trying to get up enough to get at least Sling TV.
Sling. You have to admit, this is one of the best arguments we've ever made on this,
oh my goodness,
show.
yeah.
This is fantastic.
I just say time of day is really killing him.
No, I understand that, and this is all part of it, right?
It's all big money.
No, of course it is. There's no question that this is a pie, and there's a lot of slices that are in this pie. But the bottom line is this, guys: if they went from 33 to 9 for a reason in the percentage of people's favorite sport.
Oh, I know.
Why on earth have they dropped into the single digits, this great sport, and they just let it go? And they had this opportunity to gain all these fans. I guess I've already made this argument. Everybody's like, pipe down, Acquaviva. You already made the argument.
Hey, go ahead. Where are you going next?
I want to go to John Gruden thing.
I was going to go to Ray Fosse first,
just
to calm us down a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead, because the John Gruden thing is going to
to get you fired back up. Ray Fosse, do you know the name, Chris? He was a catcher for the Indians, then a catcher for the A's.
That's right.
And in 1970, when I was at St. Francis Hospital, I had tubes in my ears. I had to stay overnight. And I'm, 14, 15 years old. But I got to watch the All-Star game, which was in the evening.
Deal. It's a huge deal, too, when I was a kid. When you were a kid.
When a lot of our listeners will know what I'm talking about. If you're a baseball fan, that's when Pete Rose rounded third, and and Fosse's guarding the plate and the throw to the plate, and he blasts Ray Fosse. Almost knocks him out. Just blasts him.
Did you ever see this, Chris, on tape? It's brutal.
Yeah.
And people, this was the single prior to Pete Rose cheating, the gambling scandal. It was the biggest.
Well, he was Charlie Hustle, and he had a hustle up in an exhibition game. And, come on, calm down, Pete. But poor Ray Fosse separated his shoulder, and he went on to play for, I think maybe, I'm guessing, 10 more years. And he was a pretty good hitter. Had a hard time throwing guys out at second, but he was with the Oakland A's, and they went into broadcasting, where I hear he had a wonderful, wonderful career. He passed away after fighting cancer last week at the age of 74. But Ray Fosse will always be tied to that Pete Rose collision.
Yeah.
But, may rest in peace, Ray, and thanks for the memories. But for the folks that are Oakland A's fans, he was an institution with that organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in a way, he helped elevate the Charlie Hustle of Pete Rose, because if he wasn't standing in his way and gotten hurt like he did, Pete Rose's notoriety of being so aggressive on the base pass in particular would probably not be as heightened as it is today, because that really helped. That was the thing that kind of demonstrated how much of a hustler he was.
As the thought leader of faith in sport, what would you recommend? What would you say to people that are Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle types in an exhibition game? Yeah. What would be your advice? Well, you got to play to win, but
this is tricky. I agree that I'm going to straddle this one, and I don't do that very often on many topics or many questions, but I do completely understand it from Pete Rose's standpoint. Yes, it was an exhibition game, but the whole reason that you play any game, whether it's checkers, chess, Monopoly, or Major League Baseball All-Star game, is to win the game. And if it's part of the rules that if somebody is in your path, you have the right to remain in that path. You don't avoid him. It is his job, even the catcher, to avoid you. And the issue was he was standing there maybe a second too soon before the ball got there, and he should have kind of come into the baseline, if I remember that video correctly.
Well, what advice do you give parents or coaches teaching them?
Well, here's the thing. Did Pete Rose want to hurt them?
Oh, no,
want to hurt him?
Of course not.
And I would argue for Pete Rose, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt that he did not want to hurt him, but he was in his path. Right. And that's why I have a hard time with players in the NFL and college football when they knock somebody out and they stand over them. That's what I really have a hard time with, because they kind of demonstrate that not only did they want to hurt them, but they kind of enjoy the fact that they're knocked out and they're standing over them. And that, I think that clearly breaks that line into poor character, morality.
Kind of sinful.
Yeah, I would call it's a strong term, but I would call that a sinful action, brother. Yeah, exactly. You like the fact that they're hurt. You're celebrating the fact that they're hurt.
Wanted your perspective, that's for sure. Go. Thank you.
All right, brother, we got a couple more minutes before we're going to do weekend headlines. I want to talk about the John Gruden thing. All right, John Gruden is a longtime NFL coach. He was an analyst just a few years ago. He came back into coaching the Las Vegas Raiders. He coached the Oakland Raiders prior to him becoming a sportscaster. Before that, he was the Tampa Bay Bucks coach. He was really successful, won one Super Bowl, and was thought to do great things with Las Vegas Raiders, even though they didn't really reach the heights that they expected, at least not in the short amount of time that they had. So anyway, recently he resigned from the Raiders team.
Last week, yep.
Yep, due to leaked emails from him that were sent to a private email of the president of the Washington football team. This guy's name is Paul Allen. Gruden and Allen are friends, and the emails contained messages and terms that were referred to from the press as homophobic, sexist, and transphobic. And this is the question. Okay, yes, he resigned. It was a big deal. And the first question was this: how on earth did these private emails from Gruden to Allen, this president of the Washington Football Club, how did they become public? But the other question I have is, that's a side note, how they became public. I would argue, or at least want to start the conversation, that if I say something to somebody else in a phone call, in an email, in a regular conversation, they should all be grouped as the same. They should all be grouped as meant for private discussion and not meant for public knowledge or public, what's the word I'm looking for? They should
disclosure.
They shouldn't be disclosed to the public. Now, if they are, here's where I'm going with this. If they do go into the public, people can judge those comments. They can even kind of develop a view of that individual, of the individuals in those conversations. But because they were private, I think there should be an argument, or at least a discussion had, that somebody could not lose their job as a result of that. What's your thought on that?
First of all, anything goes through the internet, including this show, is public information.
Okay. But so you're grouping this show, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Along with an email.
An email I send you, a text message I send you, anything electronic. If I write you a personal note, I think that's where it's different, but we can always talk that.
Yeah.
But the bigger part of all this, whether it's public or not, that was his heart speaking. That came from him. What is character is what you do in the dark, and he maybe thought this was in the dark, but the light was shined.
No,
the light came forward, and his true feelings from his heart were on display for all of us to see, including the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, including the press and everyone else. And that's when we or they decide he is inappropriate to be leading men on the football field or leading an organization.
All right, we're going to go to the weekend headlines here in a minute, but just another 60 seconds of this discussion, because I think this is a deep discussion. We might even come back to it after the break. But, Ed, isn't there something to be said about, if we're on social media, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, whatever the case is, that is truly social. But the thing about private conversations, Ed, if you and I are talking without these microphones, if we're standing out in front of this building, and you and I and Chris, or just you and I, are in your car, and you're recording that, and you go, listen what Acquaviva said. Listen how upset he got about the current situation, about the vaccine, or about mandates, or about
the Pope.
About the Pope or the president, whatever the case is. Then I'll just go, Ed, I can't believe that. I was just frustrated. I was having a particularly bad day. And I understand this was lots of emails. But the fact is, if he would have wrote one, you and I, all of us know, if he would have wrote just one bad email, he still would have resigned. Because in this day and age of change and this this magnifying glass that's on the expectations of us as a people, as a leader, as a coach, as a principal of a school, whatever the case is, if we're in some position of authority, then the expectations are higher than ever. And I just think that the magnifying glass has been turned on so much that it makes it really difficult for us just to be human. And as you mentioned off air, brother, we are sinful people. Do we want to be indicted on every single thought and word that we say?
And not at all. And I just wish he would have came out. Well, did he apologize? Was it truthful? Yeah. No, I think that's the real deal. And people went like that. I thought you were going to go to the hypocrisy piece, where other people can do the same, and they're left off scot-free.
Yeah, and that's true. That's another road we can go down.
But again, that's a business, and they have an image to protect.
No, that's true. And in fact, listen, let's do this. We'll go to weekend headlines. We'll take a break. We'll revamp some of these thoughts. Maybe even come back to it after that. But listen, folks, after the break, we're going to do more. Ed and I are going to have more conversation on what's going on in the world of sport. But in particular, we're going to do the quick Q&A, and we're going to address the incredible streak that's been broken recently in college football. I'm going to see if Ed can figure out what that is.
I got to Google this. I got to figure
Brother,
this out.
Take us to the music for weekend headlines.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
It's time for Weekend Headlines with Dr. John Acquaviva on Faith and Sport.
So, folks, here's what's going on in the PGA. Las Vegas's CJ Cup was won by Irishman Rory McIlroy, his 20th on the tour. He takes away $1.7 million for hitting that little white ball.
Beautiful.
The tour's next stop is the Zozo Championship in Japan. Ed, can you look up, if he's at 20th, of all of the current guys in the tour, where does he rank as far as tour wins? I would think he's right near the top.
I would think so, too.
In the NHL, the season is underway, folks. Most teams have played only 3 games, and Ed's Penguins and my Red Wings have yet to lose. So my question to Ed is, Ed, can the Pittsburgh Penguins go the entire season without losing?
Absolutely. Geno Malkin's coming
I love
back.
I love that optimism. It's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Major League Baseball. Now this is Chris's turn. We're deep into the playoffs and currently in the championship series for both leagues. In the AL, the Boston Red Sox and Houston Astros are locked in at 1-1 in their best-of-7 series, and the Braves are up 2-0 against the mighty LA Dodgers.
That's right.
Are you enjoying the heck out of this?
I am really enjoying it.
These are two. Did you see the other day when they made the winning hit in the bottom of the ninth? The Dodgers had men on first and second, and Chris Taylor rounded second base. Oh my gosh, what a base! You know what I'm talking about? Were you watching that when that happened? And he got caught in that rundown. That was the end of the inning. They could have had a big inning with that. And you must have been going, "Oh, thank you for making that silly decision to round second base and getting a rundown, Chris."
Yeah, no, I couldn't believe that. He was running towards third. He looked around, then he went back towards second, and he got caught right in between.
Oh man! Anyway, this is fantastic.
And he ran right into
They have to win 4
Swanson.
games. But who would you rather be right now? The Dodgers down 0-2 or the Braves up 2-0? So good for you, brother. I hope you're enjoying this.
Yeah, go Braves.
This is awesome. NCAA football, lots of stuff to report, but there's 2 shockers that occurred over the weekend. One is at number 2 in the country is the University of Cincinnati. In the nation, number 2.
Go
Amazing.
Bearcats. Go
And
Bearcats.
LSU will dismiss championship coach Ed Orgeron once the season concludes.
That is
Chris, what does Ed Orgeron have to say about this whole thing?
We're coming. We're coming. And we ain't backing down.
I just love to hear his voice. Doesn't matter what he said. He could be reading the menu at Chili's. Well, I like this. You got Pepsi or Coke here? I think that guy's fantastic. He is a character within the world of sport. I think everybody likes him. But he's on his way out. He can only finish up he's got to finish it up as the LSU coach at the end of the year. He decided to discuss his contract, but he's done at the end of the year. So there you have it, folks. Sports news that may or may not change your life. Take it away, Chris.
Back to the bio for Ed Orgeron. You are listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. We're streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. And we go on the Carolina Catholic Radio app or on to carolinacatholicradio.org. Make sure you hit the Donate Now button to continue to help broadcast Carolina Catholic Radio online and on the app. Without your help, we can't keep Carolina Catholic Radio on the air, so hit that donate button today. More Faith and Sport up next.
Carolina Catholic Radio is your local EWTN parish and community connection, bringing you local news and information from over 100 parishes in the Charlotte Diocese and Rock Hill Oratory. Catch the spirit. Prayerfully consider a tax-deductible donation today at carolinacatholicradio.org.
Teachers that care, professors that care about you. Just an awesome experience all around.
There's peace here. There's encouragement here.
Faculty, everybody that works here, they really set you up for success.
I don't think I have ever felt as loved and as supported and as encouraged as I have at the Abbey.
There's something here that's underlying and intrinsic. There's like a spirit of love and community. And I think the spirit is God's presence here.
Belmont Abbey College, a world away, but close to home. Visit us at belmontabbeycollege.edu.
Hello, Carolina Catholics. This is Dr. Gregory Popchak from EWTN's More to Life. Our faith is God's greatest gift to us and a priceless treasure. But faith doesn't spare us from the challenges of life. I know from over 20 years of practice that most families face one or more serious issues: addiction, anxiety, depression, marriage problems, divorce. If you're struggling with these or similar issues, there's hope. The Catholic counselors at my Pastoral Solutions Institute are here to help. Visit us today at CatholicCounselors.com or call 866-724-1196 and let your journey to healing begin. That's 866-724-1196 or visit us at CatholicCounselors.com. This is Dr. Greg Popchak with EWTN's More to Life here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network.
The Carolina Catholic Radio Network, a proud affiliate of EWTN Radio, has now been on the air, on the internet, and on your smartphone for 2.5 years, with many wonderful local programs to educate, inform, and inspire you on your journey of faith. With the negative impact of secular media in our culture, the positive impact of our Carolina Catholic apostolate is needed now more than ever to evangelize the truth of Jesus Christ and our Catholic faith to guide us in daily life. Carolina Catholic has many awesome plans for you across our 6 platforms this fall. In the weeks ahead, we will begin to share our plans as we secure your financial support to make them a reality. Please consider a one-time donation or monthly tithe today. Just go to the Donate tab on carolinacatholicradio.org. Thank you for your prayerful consideration to join us in our mission to evangelize across the Carolinas. May God bless you abundantly.
We are back with more Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. I'm Chris, the producer, and once again, here he is, the host of Faith and Sport, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the show. This is Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University, and just about once a week I come down here and we do the Faith and Sport show. Ed Billick's with us in studio. He joins us about once a month. Chris is the producer. He joins us just about every time. And this is Faith and Sport, where we look at sport through a Catholic lens. Listen, the second half of our show, we got a couple cool things coming up. We're going to talk about a college player who skipped his senior year of high school to join college football. We're going to talk about whether that's a good idea for college football to allow that. We're also going to talk about the expansion in college football. They want to expand the number of teams that are in the playoff, maybe to 6 teams, 8 teams, maybe even 12. And we're going to continue the conversation with college football, and we're going to discuss an incredible winning streak that has come to an end involving Nick Saban and the Alabama Clemson Tigers.
The Freudian slip.
That was the Did I say the Alabama Clemson Tigers? Let's clarify
Dabo,
yeah,
Sweeney.
I know.
We're thinking about strong Christian men. That's why
right.
you think
very good. I think so.
Saban is, I think, a strong Christian guy.
Alabama Crimson Tide. That's why I got messed up, right? Clemson.
I've done the same thing.
So listen, one more thing. We're in the first half of the show. We were talking about John Gruden, who has resigned because he had some personal emails that were meant for another gentleman in the NFL, but they were confiscated and they were transphobic, homophobic, sexist. I think some racist comments were made there, and then he resigned immediately when these surfaced. And one of the big questions is who leaked these, right? But the big thing is this, Ed, and maybe this is the way to end it, but I'll give you the final word. But the final word for me is, it's a dangerous world when somebody's out to get us, because if they can get a hold of everything that we've said, even in the last 10 years, everything we've done or looked at on the internet, every conversation we've had with people, especially if we're upset with something or someone, oh man, so many people would be in trouble.
And you're really getting into the political world where whether it's true or not, and things are even made up.
Yeah.
So, how do you protect yourself? Well, I heard one sportscaster say, I talked to my 14-year-old daughter. I said, listen, anything you put online, anything you tweet, anything you put on Facebook, that's public information. Okay. Yeah. And that could come back and haunt you 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Understood.
So I think as good Catholic men and women, we just need to ascertain, we need to ask the right questions, and we need to make up in our own mind. We're all flawed people, okay? Yep. We all deserve second and third chances, and we have to make our own decisions about people's character and morale and ethics.
Yep.
And it's truly up to us versus just hearing what other people may be telling us.
No, but you said something earlier that it'd be interesting to hear from John Gruden, and is he sorry for making these comments? Because although everybody, when somebody makes an apology, is not forgiving of that individual, they don't accept the apology.
Because probably the apology is not sincere. They're just doing it for PR problem.
It's possible, but even when it is sincere, if you and I were to gauge it as sincere, some people, they don't want to accept it because they want to see that person remain on the ropes, so to speak, right? And kind of, just kind of, squirm away and kind of deal with what they've said and maybe even kind of punish them to a degree. Right. All right, let's move on from that, brother. Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva, being joined in studio with special host Ed Billick. Ed, let's continue talking about some of the stuff that's in the world of sport. And I think this is such an interesting conversation. It has to do with a quarterback who should be in high school right now. He should be preparing for the senior homecoming dance this Friday or Saturday. His name is Quinn Ewers. He was the number one quarterback in the land in high school, at least as he was projected this year. He should be playing his high school senior season right now. But out of nowhere, in the summer, he decided to forego his senior year to take the classes that he needed to take to graduate from his high school in Texas.
So he did graduate.
He did graduate.
Okay.
And
early.
And then join the Ohio State Buckeyes. And he's not their starter, which I thought was interesting. I thought the reason somebody would do that is because the coach said, listen, you're projected to be our starter. I'm not sure why somebody would leave and then just go sit on the bench where he could be honing his game and developing his skill in high school in Texas. But the reason that this is a concern is in the NBA, you can no longer go from your high school year, senior season, directly to the NBA. You have to either go to the developmental league, go to Europe, or even sit out that year, because the NBA, with all their faults, the one thing that they have correct is they have fully realized that an 18-year-old kid coming out of high school is not quite ready physically, but also emotionally for the world of the NBA player. And I won't even say the NBA player. I will say the professional athlete. And I would argue the same thing, that the NCAA has done a misstep here, allowing a kid that should be in his senior year, whether you can graduate early or not, they should just pat him on the back and go, good for you, Quinn. You graduated early, but you can't come to Ohio State. You can't come to the NCAA until you've developed a little more. And yes, I know that there's kids that are like savants and they're brilliant and they graduate high school at like 13 and 14, right?
Yeah.
There's people, right? There's kids that have their graduate degree by the time they're like 22 or 23 years old. They've gone through high school, they've gone through undergraduate, and even have a graduate degree by the time they're 20 or 22, because they're brilliant, right? But this is different. We're talking about overlooking the whole kid in college. They have to look at them from an academic standpoint, but also an athletic standpoint. But you also want him because he's going to be. There's
a maturity lacking there.
That's right. So, what's your feeling on it? Is this a point to be made? Like, should the NCAA step in on this?
Yeah, but can they? Legally, can they? See, because it gets legally,
yeah, that's right.
And it's competitive.
That's right.
But I really think, as the parents of this child, let's wait till you're mature enough to enter your college. You're going to learn a lot more being a senior in high school, and is he foregoing all the stuff, all the memories and all? He could be a one and done in college, and then that's it. And then where's he go? You know? So maybe academically he qualifies, but that's not the right thing for the entire person.
You know, Carlos and I talked about this a couple weeks ago.
What was his take, by the way?
Well, he mentioned he did exactly what you did, and we just didn't have the chance to flush the whole thing out, so that's why I brought this back up. But Carlos made the same point you did, and I thought that was good insight on both of your guys' part. He said, where are his parents in all this? Like, it's one thing for this kid to say, hey, listen, I want to go to college, Mom and Dad, but Mom and Dad go, and you know the reason they gave? They don't have the nil in Texas, in high school football in Texas. You know, the name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
They're like, he can go earn money. And I'm going, that's what this is about? You just want your, like, Jiminy Crickets. Let the kid just go to his...
He can go work at H-E-B and haul groceries around. He can make some money there. I know it's not the same, and I'm being a wise guy here, but I don't think that's the right for the individual.
You're making a joke, but what you're saying is, hey, listen, if you want money, go to work. But the thing is, and I mean this, from the standpoint, if nothing else, if I'm his dad, and I'm talking to Alicia, my wife, about our son doing this, we would say, honey, I understand the nil thing. I understand the fact that you're even ready to go play college football, but just be a kid, because one of the things you can't get back are things like that. You're going to be working the rest of your life. And the fact is that this kid's chance to make the NFL is about this big.
Oh, you're right. Very small, folks. He's making a real small thing.
You want to protect your kids. You want to protect them from some things. And this is one thing you could protect them from. And I thought they made a big misstep. He made a misstep, but I think, as Carlos said, and you said, the bigger misstep.
And his name is?
Quinn Ewers.
How do you spell your Y-O-U-R-S?
No, it's E-W-E-R-S.
E-W-E-R-S. We'll have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, keep an eye on him. In fact, I think he's like third on the depth chart. I don't think he's even taken a snap, which ultimately means he'll be redshirted, probably. But still, it's a surprise that they allowed this to happen. And because of this, I don't think anybody anticipated this. It's one of those things where you don't put in a rule until you see it as a problem, right? You don't put in this rule. Who on earth would have thought 5 years ago somebody was going to leave high school?
Where's the responsibility on the university?
Well, that's just it. I think it's the same thing like the NBA. The NBA they took a step back a couple years ago and went, it's probably not a good idea for these guys to be, because some of them can be 17 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping to the life of an NBAer? Holy smokes, I can't think of anything else. Is being a high schooler or being a college player to being a professional athlete that could ruin the formation.
And we all know from the 17, 18-year-old to the 22, 23-year-old is like decades of maturity. And so here you're hanging out with adults and you're still a kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to mention one thing, even though the show will air a couple, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
and it's already Monday. Chris, quickly, we're doing this Catch the Spirit Fall Pledge Drive. What's that all about this week? And it'll be all done this week, but what's that all about?
Yeah, that's right. It's to make everyone aware in the Charlotte Diocese, Catholic Diocese, that Carolina Catholic Radio is on the air and spreading the Word of God and trying to spread the word to all the Catholics around the area. We want to get the word out that we need your help to support Carolina Catholic Radio. We can't, do it on our own, and we need the listening community's help, plus the help of the diocese. And we're doing this fall pledge drive, and we're traveling around to different parishes around the Charlotte Diocese. Like today, before coming to do Faith and Sport, I was out at St. Mark's Catholic Church
up in Huntersville.
And had a great time up there with Kathleen Lewis, Gene Whalen, and Elza Spady. They all host their own shows like Healed and Restored and Joyful Echo. And we've got other locations we're going to be heading out to, like tomorrow we're going down to Belmont Abbey College in my neck of the woods.
And that'll be from 11 to 1. And then I'll be co-hosting with Carolina Clicka, and you'll be there, Chris, at St. Matthew, my home parish, from 10 to noon. St. Gabriel's also that afternoon on Wednesday. And Thursday, St. Joseph's Seminary, and then to wrap up the week at St. Thomas Aquinas. It's a way, folks. We'll be out on the road. We'll be talking to the local parishioners. We'll be interviewing a lot of local people. So I think it's a great way to your point, get the word out, Chris, but also to increase the fundraising.
That's right. Invite people to come and support Carolina Catholic Radio. Hey, we're out here trying to get people to support Carolina Catholic Radio and keep Carolina Catholic Radio on the air.
And now back to Faith and Sport with our host.
Right. Speaking of Carolina Catholic Radio,
Dr. John.
Well, let me ask you guys this before we get away from that. One of the things, in part, is to bring it back to the airwaves, right? So it's back on 1170?
1270.
1270, of course.
1270,
yeah,
yep.
1270. I should have known that. I talk about it all the time in the previous shows. But yeah, it's right now. What are the different ways that they can currently get the show?
Well, they can listen to it on the Carolina Catholic Radio website, which is carolinacatholicradio.org. And they can also listen on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. They can download that from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, absolutely free of charge, and listen to the great programming
and
that
what you
way.
could do, you could Bluetooth it right into your car, and you can listen clear as a bell, and you hear Dr. Acquaviva.
Yeah.
That's right.
No distortion.
That's right.
No static, although he may cause some static once in a while.
That's right. And listen to the whole Faith and Sport archive until you get tired of hearing John Acquaviva's voice.
Honey, what are you listening to, Dr. Acquaviva? What are you listening to there, Dr. Acquaviva? Well, you like the guy? Yeah, he's pretty insightful.
Hey, speaking of insight, Chris, why don't you throw a question or two at us? The quick Q&A with Dr. A, and Ed and I will try to handle these questions the best we can. What do you got for us, brother?
Okay, the first one. So what is the incredible streak broken recently in college football?
All right, this is back to our topic of college football. Clearly one of my favorite things to talk about. But it has to do with Nick Saban and the fact that he has had so many people that were previously his assistant coaches that went on to become head coaches. All of these guys, like Jimbo Fisher, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, Mark D'Antonio, and almost all of them have played against Alabama after they left as an assistant, right?
Yes.
And up until this season, Nick Saban was 23-0 against those guys and others, right? I think there's like a total of 8 or 9 guys. Yeah. The streak came to an end 2 weeks ago with your Aggies.
Get 'em, Aggies! Whoop!
Whoop! Jimbo Fisher is one of the many great, successful head coaches that was at one point an assistant under Nick Saban.
Absolutely.
And it was a great game. They beat him 41-38, and that streak came to an end. And I think for the last several years especially, it looked like that streak would never end.
You know, and when you challenged me before the break on that, it's also a 100-game win streak was broken for his team playing unranked teams. A&M was unranked.
That's right.
And it's the first time an unranked team beat his Crimson Tide. And I tell you, the folks at Kyle Field, my son, he goes, Dad, you watching this? I went to bed because he and I talked before the game.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I watched the first quarter. I go, this is going to be a bloodbath. It's terrible.
Did you think that you thought they had no chance?
So then he texts me like an hour, are you watching this, Dad? And so, gig 'em Aggies. Beautiful for Texas A&M college football there at Kyle Field.
But you know what's interesting about the fact that they weren't ranked is they weren't ranked literally. The only time they haven't been ranked was the week they played them. They're ranked prior to that game, and then since they beat them, they're ranked again.
Yeah,
they
sure are.
I want to say they're in the 20th or something like that.
I think they're 20th, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's to a degree that's an unfair label, but the fact is they were unranked at the time, and they beat Alabama.
And now Georgia is number 1, and Cincinnati's number 2.
Yeah,
and what's going on? And your Michigan Wolverines are playing some nice ball.
We're excited about that, brother, in our household. That's one of the neat things about having kids is that Luke has truly jumped on this bandwagon of the Detroit Tigers and Major League Baseball altogether, and he likes college football.
I wonder why. It must be the parents' influence. They must be doing an outstanding job raising that young man.
No, it's pretty tough, but you know what? I thought it was going to be really tough to make him become a Detroit Tigers fan, but I don't. He just naturally follows them. He's like, Dad, did the Tigers win last night?
It's called DNA, Chris. It's in the blood, the X's and O's.
Well, let's go on to the next question. We got a second question this time. What do you got?
Your thoughts of Kyrie Irving not getting vaxxed?
All right, this is NBA player. This is a little more controversial, I think, with Ed and I. We only have a couple minutes to answer this, but this is pretty big deal. Kyrie Irving is a player for the Brooklyn Nets, and he's one of the few players, and I think probably the only star that we could say in the NBA that has decided and publicly has explained this, why he is not getting vaxxed. And he said it's a personal decision. It's not a political issue. He doesn't want to make a big deal out of it. But because of the person he is, he's a star in the NBA, it's become a big deal story. And the fact is he plays in New York. And New York, they have a mandate that anybody who participates, I don't even. What is the wording of this?
Well, I'm just going off the top of memory. Anyone that's employed.
Yeah, he's employed in the state of New York.
In the city of New York.
In the city of. It's not a statewide thing, or is it
I
just a city?
know that.
Okay.
I don't know that. But my question is, he can go play the Boston Celtics in Boston.
Yeah, of course he can go play that. But if he plays here,
he can't practice here.
He can't practice, and he can't play.
And the team has said, well, then you're not on the team.
And he doesn't get paid, which I don't think is all that big of a deal. But that's a whole lot of money. It's not coming in his bank account.
Unlike a lot of these companies, they're laying off folks, and they're not getting paid.
So my question to you off air, and I'm going to pose it to you on air, and I know this gets pretty complicated, brother.
Well, it sure does.
Is that every major sport has a union. The baseball has a union, football has a union. It's called the Players Association. And when there is a decision that affects all of them, they all have to agree, and it's part of their collective bargaining agreement. What my concern or my question is how is it that the NBA Players Association, this NBA union,
can't push back on this
with
the state, with the city.
But I was reading, brother, that they can, and that ultimately the mandate doesn't override their collective bargaining agreement because as a union, they did not agree to the mandate.
And this is not only in professional basketball. This is teachers' unions. This is the military. This is just a hot topic all through the nation.
Oh, brother, this is as hot as it comes. In California, there was a walkout today with the teachers. I think, remember in Chicago, I heard that there was the union for police officers says, we're not going to take this mandate. You're not going to tell us we're going to take this mandate. And that was on Friday, right? That was just a couple days ago.
When else in our lifetime has there been a mandate like this?
There hasn't been, brother. I think that's just it, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I can't recall.
I can't recall anything like this.
I mean, yeah, when we were kids, we were vaccinated for polio and some other things, but no one said. And then if you said, no, I don't want the vaccination, they say, okay.
Yeah, that's true. No, I met a kid at my school. He's a student of mine at Wingate University, and he has no vaccinations. And I said, how did you get into the school? And he goes, they made exception. And so if they make exception, and the irony is the exception isn't based on religion. It's not based on anything other than the fact that his family is anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
And so I heard
flu shots, anything, any kind of vaccine.
I heard that there's a local charter school to us said they had a bunch of exemptions come in, and they were religious exemptions, and the school board denied every single one of them. And I think that's against constitutional law.
Yeah, see, that's why it's in the
because
courts.
A lot of people, they seem to forget when they're trying to enforce these mandates that it's not an actual law. I mean, you can't force somebody to do it because it's not a law. It's a mandate. You can say, hey, you need to do this, but you can't force them to do it.
Yeah.
And it's really wrong for them to lose their jobs over it, too.
You get Ed Orgeron ready, brother. You ready? All right, listen, in conclusion, I want to give this quote as I always do. John Paul II said, give thanks to God for the gift of sport in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator. Brother, I enjoyed being on the show.
It's always been a pleasure, Chris. You, John, keep up the good work. We'll see you next time around here on Faith and Sport.
Thank you, Ed Billick, for joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Thank you to Chris Pressler, our producer. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio for more Faith and Sport.
Hey, those are my boys. We stick together.
You've been listening to Carolina Catholic Radio, Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. Remember, when you go to the app or on the website at carolinacatholicradio.org, to hit that Donate Now button to help keep Carolina Catholic Radio on the air. And make sure to meet us out at one of the various locations we're going to be broadcasting live from this week to meet some of your favorite Carolina Catholic Radio personalities for our Carolina Catholic Radio Fall Pledge Drive to help keep Carolina Catholic Radio on the air.